what's up? My name is Daniela and welcome to a new video. So today we are going to be wrapping up 2025 and we're also going to be talking about 2026 goals. I want to do that in one video so both you and myself have some context for the new goals. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel to see more, but without further ado, let's jump into it. So first I would be looking at my 2025 goals, but the thing is that I actually didn't really set goals for 2025, especially like reading goals, which is fine. I was searching for a document that, you know, would be the goals, and the only thing I found was I did start a document, but there was only one goal on it, and I didn't even remember fully that it was a goal, and it was to put 200 crowns, so like 8 euros, into a savings account after each book that I read. This is something that Eva from Pretty Purple Polka Dots famously does, and so I was inspired. I think I kind of did this last year a little bit, and yeah, this year I started with it, but I fell off, I think in September or October. The thing is that I was saving money quite intensely last year, and I have multiple savings accounts, so I was just sending the 200 crowns to like one of them and then maybe I ended up using it like at the end of the month or something. So I don't really have like one space where I would now find the money, but it is fine because yeah, I don't think this goal is especially for me. I guess the main idea behind this is that you set like a small amount. I think if I does 1 euro, and then if you read like 100 books at the end of the year you have 100 euros, and you can use that like for book buying or like for treating yourself with something. But yeah, my saving just works very differently, so I don't think I will be revisiting this goal, but you know, for part of the year I kind of stuck to it. And then at the beginning of 2025 I actually didn't know that I would be doing TBR Zero. I only decided on that during the year. I don't even know when exactly, but it ended up happening. So in the last quarter of 2025 I was intensely working on Project TBR Zero, which I made several videos about, and I did reach it like a few days before the end of the year. So that was a success. I'm really glad about how the goals for 2025 ended up working out. Like at the beginning I didn't feel like setting up goals, so I didn't, but then during the year I thought of a big goal, which I did, and it's just perfect. And now I actually feel much more excited for new reading goals, so we will get to that in a second. But first let's look at the stats from 2025 and what we can glean from them. So in total I read 63 books in 2025, and this is how they divide into categories. So first we have the read in a month stat, and my months tend to be all over the place, as you can see. So started the year kind of solid. April was good because I was participating in 2 readathons, then a little bit of a slump over summer, which I feel it happens quite often, and then yeah, ended up the year strongly, like especially the last quarter. Then we have star rating, and I had an amazing reading year considering my star rating, because like 0 1 stars, 0 2 stars, only 5 3 stars, and the rest were 4 and 5 stars, so I think the average is like 4.4. So yeah, I was just picking really great books. My audience split is pretty usual, I would say. Mostly adult. I think that I read even less young adult than in the previous years, and like 8 of the 11 young adults were on my physical TBR, so were like part of the Project TBR Zero, so I read them during the last quarter. I definitely wasn't in a huge young adult mood. In terms of genre, contemporary is my winner. Then we have 18 non-fiction, which I was a bit surprised about because non-fiction is usually one of my top like 3 genres, but 18 is quite a lot. Third place romance, that is not surprising. Very few fantasy, which I think in part is because when it's like a witchy romance, but it's mostly a romance, I categorize it as romance. Also some books are kind of between contemporary and fantasy, so I always try to look at what like the main genre is, although sometimes it is hard to say. So more books had some like fantastical elements, but I only categorized 4 as fantasy. More historical books than usual, I would say. Whole 4 books, which was mostly because I got ambitious and got some historical fiction, and then I struggled to read it during Project TBR Zero, but no regrets. Only one book categorized as sci-fi, even though, again, there were books that had some sci-fi elements, but that wasn't the prevailing genre. One classic and one poetry, and no thrillers or like crime books. No dystopian. We have enough dystopian in real life, I think. Year published is a bit sad because I only read one book from 2025. It was Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor, which I'm not happy about. I'm not happy about only reading one new release, but that's just the price you pay sometimes for doing TBR Zero or some other ambitious project like that. I also like reread quite a few books, well, we will get to that. And 8 were from 2024, which at least is good. That is good. But yeah, the majority was between 2010 and 2023. Only 3 books before 1991. That is the year that I was born, so I track it like this. In terms of series versus standalones, I read mostly standalones, even though some of the books I read are like part of loose series, like romances or witchy romances. I'm not a huge rereader, but I did reread 8 books in 2025, which is more than usual. In the last few years, the main reason for rereading is usually to see if I'm ready to unhold that book, because I unhold the majority of books after the first read, and then from the ones that I keep on my shelves, a good portion of them I unhaul after the second read, because like once I read it 2 times, unless it's like super special, like I probably won't be necessarily rereading it in the next few years, so I can get rid of it. But I actually reread some books and kept them for now, so their fate is not yet sealed. The format will not be surprising because obviously I was doing a physical TBR Zero, so yeah, 52 books physical, only 7 ebooks, which is not much. Also, I've had my Kindle for almost 10 years and it is starting to break down. And it is very practical to read ebooks like while traveling. So we will see what I do about that. And only 4 audiobooks. All of the 4 books were nonfiction, which I realized that for me is the main genre I want to listen to, because with fiction, unfortunately, for one, I struggle with focusing on audiobooks, which is fine for non-fiction when it's like a memoir. It can be really tricky with fiction, and also, unfortunately, I have had the experience multiple times where a fiction audiobook just really detracts from my enjoyment. I have already listened to a fiction audiobook this year in January, and yeah, it kind of ruined it for me. But it is awesome for like memoirs, especially when the author is narrating it. So audiobooks just have like only a small place in my reading life right now. In terms of source, again, it makes a lot of sense that most of them were from my own TBR. That was the point. Only 4 books from the library, which is not much. Then yeah, 3 were audible and 1 was borrowed from a friend. And those are all the graphs that I prepared. I do track like some more things in my spreadsheet, but over the years my passion for like tracking every single thing and then having it in a video kind of has waned. So that was just to give you a little bit of insight into how my 2025 reading year went. Now let's talk about 2026. So when I was thinking about which goals to put on my 2026 list, especially after like taking basically a year off from year-long reading goals, I realized that a lot of the goals that I had in the past just don't really interest me anymore, and my brain finds them very boring. And I'm just saying that like for me personally, I'm not saying that like if you have those goals it is boring. I always love to see your goals, just to be clear. So right now my brain doesn't really care about the number of books I read. I read 63 in 2025 and I'm happy about that. I guess it would be a little bit of a bummer if I read like under 50, but then again, like no big tragedy. And in the past I was kind of interested in maybe like one year hitting 100 books, but right now I'm not that fussed about it. In 2025 I didn't even set my Goodreads goal to anything, which I think was like the first year. Which this year I might put in something random like 1 book, because even though it's not a goal, it was kind of nice like in the previous years to see the total number, but mostly I don't care. Then another thing I don't really want to set as a goal is finishing series. I did that during some years, like finishing 5 series. I'm thinking that if I really want to finish a series, I will do it. And as we saw, I don't read that many series to begin with, at least not the ones where like it is like tightly connected and you have to be up to speed with it. So yeah, I don't care. Same for like reading more of a certain genre. In the past I set goals like read a certain amount of, I don't know, non-fiction, I guess, which I read so many non-fictions, and I think that will continue quite naturally. And yeah, in terms of genre split, I kind of just want to read what I want to read. I also don't think I will be putting together like a list of specific books. I did that a couple of times and it felt like required reading, especially as someone who studied English in Czech. I don't need any more lists. Like sometimes it is nice for fun to like get inspired from some lists, but yeah, I don't think I will be putting together a list of required reading. I also won't be setting a specific number goal around diversity and representation in books. I didn't include it in my stats, but the vast majority of books I read in 2025 were diverse in some regard, and I think I have picked up the habit of reading diversely quite well. Obviously there is always room for improvement, and it is good to keep in mind that we have to go a little bit out of our way to read diversely, because like what's publishers like throwing at us isn't diverse enough. You know, the things that get the biggest marketing budgets. But for the most part, diverse books are just what I naturally want to read. So it is happening and I don't need to set a specific goal around it. I do want to be more mindful of reading more books with disability rep, which is especially something that you have to go out of your way a little bit, because there won't be that much books with disability rep within the most popular books. Another goal I had in some years, I think I had it like every single year that I set goals, is to read or unhaul all of the books that I got before that year, and I have already done that. So yeah, all of the books that I now have are, well, basically I'm counting them into 2026, even though technically I got them like in the last week of 2025. One wish that I have that I won't be setting a number around either is to read more new releases. That would be nice. In 2025 I read one from 2025, so I think we can do better than that, but it won't be a goal, it's just a wish. But now let's talk about the goals that I'm actually doing and that I'm actually excited about. I kind of took you through my like thought process of what goals I was considering and why I didn't choose them. So these are the winners. These ones we are doing. So goal number one is a very lofty goal, and it is tightly connected to what happened in 2025. And it is to keep my physical TBR under 10. This is a lofty goal, and it's something that I don't think I've ever done before. As I mentioned, I was doing the like read or unhaul all the books that I got in the previous year, but I never put a number on it. I never restricted how many books I can actually have on my physical TBR, and I'm sure that for a lot of you 10 is like an insane number. But based on my experience from Project TBR Zero 2025, I don't want to get again into a situation where I have 20 books on my TBR and the majority of them have been probably sitting there for a while. So like, you know, I have prioritized many other books over them, and then it is just them, and yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. So I think that 10 books is a good number. At least it seems that way. We will see how it goes, but it is a good number for me and what I'm currently doing, like how much space I have and what life plans I have like for this year, next year. So yeah, I'm excited about this one. I'm already at 7 books right now because I got 7 books for Christmas. So we are a little bit in the danger zone right now. I also don't want to feel like super restricted about book shopping. So we have some work to do already. Goal number 2 is kind of connected to the first one, and again it is to prevent the situation that happened in 2025 from happening again, and it is to read every book I get within 3 months of getting it. I really don't like when books sit on my shelves and rot and I keep looking at them and I keep not choosing them. The waiting really isn't helping anything, so I want to get the books that I want to read in the next 3 months. The only reasonable exception that I can think of is seasonal books. So let's say witchy books or Christmas books, even though with witchy books I would be willing to read them some other time than October, but with Christmas books I basically only want to read them in December. So for example, last year it was February or March and I found 2 books for very cheap and they were Christmas books. So I got them in February and obviously I only read them in December. So something like that might happen, but at the same time I'm thinking that it might not be really worth it, like saving a little bit of money and then having the book sitting on my shelves again in my current life situation. So this is one exception I can think of and we will just see how it goes, but for the majority of the books they will get read within 3 months or else. Goal number 3 is one that I think in a way might be the hardest for me, and that is to read a book I'm super excited about every month. So this might sound like really easy because obviously like we are picking up books we're excited about like most of the time, right? But I just find that this has been kind of a struggle for me during the past few years, because let's say like I was doing the project TBR Zero, so for the most part those actually weren't books that I was super excited to read now because they have been on my shelves for a while. Or let's say that I have some like imaginary list of my like top books to read and I didn't end up reading any of the top 10 books that I was excited about that month because I don't know, my library doesn't have it. I didn't want to spend money on that, so instead I chose like number 30 because it was cheap in a secondhand bookstore or because my library happened to have that. So I kind of want to actively work on that and every month during some point in the month think about which book is actually one that I would like to read now, and I will find a way to get it even if it means getting it new. As we established, I don't really like to listen to fiction audiobooks, so a lot of the times that might mean either getting it on ebook or getting it from a secondhand bookstore, but obviously that's super limited and they probably won't have like my top picks every month. So yeah, I just might need to buy a new one. But yeah, every month I just have to read a book that I'm excited about. Right now for January I think we can like do it with my current physical TBR, you know, one of the 7 books that I have, because I think one of the books is that has been on my like mental TBR for a few years actually, but it's still one that I'm super excited about and it is like near the top. So we might get away with that and not have to like get something new, because I'm also kind of doing January no buy. Like that wasn't really a plan, but I just realized like mid-January that I haven't spent any money apart from like necessary expenses like groceries and rent. So I guess now I'm doing like January low buy or no buy. So I might not be getting new books in January, but still fulfilling this goal. That would be nice. That might have been a bit of a long-winded explanation, but I feel that this goal is much more clearer in my head than how it's easy to explain. So I hope it's kind of clear. Goal number 4 is to read a book in Spanish. Again, I read a book in Spanish in 2025, only one, but it is fine. And I do have one, not on my TBR, because I have read it in other languages, and it is The Little Prince by Anton de Saint-Exupéry. I have read this in English and Czech. Have I read it in English? I'm not sure actually. I have read it in Czech probably multiple times. I bought this in Spain, and yeah, it is one of my goals now to read at least one Spanish book a year, and this one is naturally like the contender, even though I'm not saying it has to be this book, so we will see what happens. Just one Spanish book. And then goal number 5 is the only one that is not quantifiable, but I still wanted to include it and keep it in mind, and it is to continue to support indie bookstores. So this is something that is pretty important to me, and it's something that I love doing, so I definitely want to continue doing that in 2026. And so I don't want to feel super like restricted about book buying, so that's why I need to keep in mind to like keep my TBR under 10 and like not like super close to 10, so that there is still room if I happen to be at an indie bookstore. I can still buy something and support them. Now might be a good time to mention how my book buying went in 2025, because I didn't say it earlier. but I spent around 100 euros on books in 2025, which is a number I'm very happy about. It also includes the time when I forgot to cancel the Audible subscription. So as you can see, I naturally don't spend that much money on books, especially given that it's like one of my biggest hobbies. Like, I definitely spend much more money on my other hobbies like traveling and concerts. When it comes to going to cafes, I calculated roughly that I probably spent like around 150 euros a year on going to cafes. So that's a little bit more than on books. So books continue to be like my most affordable hobby, I guess. So I don't want to put a budget on it. Well, I have like monthly budgets and financial spreadsheets, but those rules aren't like super strict. Some month I might have more money for books because I'm not spending that much in another category. So yeah, the only restriction when it comes to buying money is that 10 books under the TBR rule. So all of these goals just feel very good to me. They feel like they make sense together. They are not very contradicting each other, and they are exciting and don't feel very restrictive. They are like ambitious just enough, I would say. So I'm very excited about what my 2026 reading will bring. But that will be all for this video. Let me know what you think about my goals or my reading in 2025 and what some of your goals are for 2026. Like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!